Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clarissa and I'm the Assistant Director of Career Services here at the Mays Center at Texas A&M San Antonio. And welcome to the next session of the Mays Executive Leadership Webinar Series. Today we're going to be talking about a really important topic of the virtual internship experience. And it's something that's really has come up as we're transitioning from that COVID period where a lot of actual in-person internships are starting to get moved into a remote experience. So this may be the first time that maybe someone's even participated in internship, let alone even an online experience. So we want to make sure that we can kind of have an open conversation. What are some tips to make sure it's going to be a really great summer for everyone? Now I am joined today by some representatives from the Air Force Civilian Service. So I'm really excited again for them to share about their program and some general advice for everybody that will be partaking in their online internship this summer. Now, a couple of housekeeping reminders. So first off, we will have the mics muted. Just make sure that we don't have feedback while our presenters are speaking. Also, make sure that if you do have questions, go ahead and enter them into the chat box, and we'll go ahead and be addressing those throughout the session. So again, please make sure to ask as many questions as you would like. Also, this session is going to be recorded, and it will be shared on the Mays Center, which is at Tamusa Mays YouTube channel. We will get it posted within the next 24 to 48 hours. So please make sure to share it with anyone you feel that this information could be helpful, or if you just want to rewatch just to kind of reflect on this. So I will go ahead and let Christina Whitfield take it over from Air Force Civilian, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Force where we do everything to try to renew our force. And so we have different programs that fall under that. We have the Premier College Intern Program, we have the Pathway Student Intern Program, we have the Palace Acquire Program, and the Copper Cap Program. And so I work with Brenna, and we try to knock all that out.
All right, Brenna.
Hi, I'm Brenna, and I am a Palace Acquire intern with the Air Force, and I work with Christina, helping her run everything force renewal. I actually started as a Premier College intern, and yeah.
And then Professor Moore.
Hi, Clarissa. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to leave in a moment and come back in so that I can access my camera. My name is Jenny Moore. I'm the Director of Student Media and also serve as the Internship Coordinator for over 200 communication majors in the College of Arts and Sciences at the university.
Nice. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Again, really excited for this. Now, again, as I had mentioned before, we are in the age of COVID where it really did kind of change practices really quickly, right? I'm curious. So, Christina, would you mind kind of sharing how maybe Air Force Civilian has really kind of reworked the internship experience to address that? And what should students maybe be kind of expecting for this summer coming up?
Basically, we went from having a 12-week intern program where people would go across the country to different Air Force bases. We would fly them out for a 3-day symposium at different locations across the country. They would get, high-level mentoring. They would get to see all sorts of really cool things. And then COVID came along, and we were told, all right, well, let's cut the timeline in half and let's do it virtual. So then it was getting the team together and figuring out, okay, how are we still going to give them a meaningful experience, exposure to the Air Force, and, kind of have it worth their time and worth our time. So the past few weeks, we've been working on an updated program. And so now we're going to be in the virtual environment, giving those students that opportunity to still take a peek behind the curtain, work with us. And then hopefully, if everything works out and they like working with us and we like them, then they could have a position whenever they graduate from school.
Now, so I guess what was your biggest concern when you're told, okay, so it's going to be remote? What was your thought process behind making sure that they were still going to have to learn something and then also still get that mentorship? How are you going to engage them like that?
So the first thought was, okay, this will be a new challenge, which I really, really enjoy. Um, but it was kind of thinking, okay, we're not going to be able to take them to a satellite launch. They're not going to be able to watch stuff blow up in person. We're not going to be able to fly them out to a symposium, and that's like a really, really big event. So it was kind of coming up with, okay, well, what elements and what objectives do we actually want? So that way we can start working the program around that. And we have a really big Air Force family. We've been fortunate to partner with our area university, and they're out in Maxwell in Alabama. And so that's our school where they do all the training. And so with that, it was okay, let's partner with them and see what they can come up with and how could they help us redo this. At the same time, we still were able to access high level mentors. And we've been reaching out across the Air Force for people in higher positions to ask, hey, would you be willing to teach and mentor these students over the 6-week program? And so we're setting up 4 different mentoring sessions with them that they're going to have the opportunity to kind of virtually connect and ask their questions. And really, at the end of the day, it's, hey, we're doing the best that we can in this environment, but you're going to get out what you put in. So if you show up every day and you ask questions, I think you're going to get a whole lot more than just kind of just clicking through information and not really engaging.
Yeah, I love the fact how you kind of mentioned the fact that make it your own, right? Because it's really easy to say, well, virtual. Am I really going to be engaged the same way? I think that was my first thought. I am a newbie to this whole remote work environment. So that first week, I was like, well, is this going to be the same? But I realized I was like, oh my goodness, I'm busier than I ever anticipated because projects are everywhere. Brenna, I'm curious, what kind of advice would you have? Because I have a feeling there may be other students that are facing this where they're like, well, this is my first time having to be a remote employee. And then I'm sure it's kind of intimidating to be a first time remote intern, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing would be to show initiative because it is a different platform. And I would say to keep communication open because they're not going to get that face to face with you. So be motivated, show initiative, and keep that communication open. I know that I'm in my master's online, so I feel like I can apply some of those things to what the interns should be doing in their virtual internship. Mhm.
So, Brenna, are you taking classes this summer?
I am.
How are you going to balance the internship? Again, it's a short amount of time, right? It's 6
Mhm.
weeks, and you're still going to have outcomes. Manage that plus schooling. What kind of advice do you have on that?
So I'm not going to be in the internship. I actually just help them. Like I've already been through the internship, so I just help them manage it. So yeah, I've already been in classes even now. So it's just you got to really learn to time manage, and that's what the interns have to learn too. Time manage, and it should be okay. Hmm.
All right, Professor Moore. Again, what advice would you have for students to really make sure that this is going to be a meaningful experience? Because again, not having that face-to-face interaction, what do you
Yeah.
think they should keep in mind?
And I really appreciate what Christina and Brenna were just saying. One of the things I've been talking to my students a lot about is pre-planning, because a lot of students haven't been in virtual internships before, but they have a pretty solid understanding, expectation of what the face-to-face is going to be like. But they're a little bit intimidated by what virtual is going to be. Strong mentors and organization is still really critical. One of the things I find myself doing now that I haven't done before is getting on WebEx or Zoom with students and pre-planning, asking them about what their expectations are, getting a clear idea for what they understand about virtual and how it differs from face-to-face, and then having separate conversations on the agency side and talking to the employers or the site supervisors and asking them what kind of mentorship or additional support do they need to be able to correspond and communicate with students. So right now I'm kind of in the middle of both of the populations, trying to make sure that the summer internships are going to go well, because we assume that face-to-face opportunities are pretty much going to dry out locally for the fall, and that we'll just be building on the virtual side for the fall program as well. So I think that was all about communicating with your professor and communicating early on with the agency to make sure that things are well organized, because virtual internships, I've got a couple students in this meeting who are in my career preparation class who've been working with me to make sure that they have a solid understanding of how the internship is going to go.
Yeah, I think, and then just again, the understanding we're all in this together right now. I know that everybody's hearing that same phrase, but we're all learning together. Christina, so what are some methods that Air Force is going to be using to kind of help streamline those lines of communication? What's the onboarding process going to look like for interns?
So we've been planning for everything to go virtual. So we have a virtual in processing that our civilian personnel sections do. I'm not the most familiar with all the intricacies. Every base does things a little different, but they're pretty much going to have a platform like this where they're going to be able to have the interns virtually swear in and, show all the guidance or all the documents that they need and go over the required briefings for them to come on board.
Now, will there, because again, I know with web conference, it is still a new platform for so many of us. What kind of supplemental training is provided for interns? Are they expected to come in with all the answers already? Because I think that's also a concern with sometimes with that first intern, you're like, oh, I need to know everything. It's like, well, no, intern is where we're kind of testing the waters. Again, this is our sometimes first work experience.
Mm-hmm. So we plan on giving them a day one training after they do their in processing, swear in. Now they're an official Air Force employee. And then they're going to meet with their supervisor. That's going to kind of go over some expectations. And then they're going to meet with their career field um, POCs or their functional area experts. And they're going to give them additional information like, okay, so if you're going to be on Zoom, our first week of work, we have our virtual symposium. So if you're in a Zoom meeting, make sure you're looking out in your background, dress appropriately, watch your camera, all that stuff, and try to give them that information so they've heard it from their supervisor, they've heard it from the career field, and then we'll also foot stomp some things during the symposium just to get them aware of everything that's going to be required of them. I think it's easy to give expectations up front so that way you can set that standard instead of just letting people try their best and not really know what to expect. I just think it makes it easier for them.
Yeah, and I know y'all have a wonderful intern program that we've actually had some students hired from. So I'm really excited to see what this summer falls for y'all. Brenna, by chance, what advice would you have again, just trying to make the most of the internship? Again, how would you suggest that a student ask for feedback? What kind of conversations should they be having with their team?
So I think one of the things I would say would be to communicate. We have them doing a lot of different groups, whether it's senior mentoring or peer mentoring. I would say communicate. A lot of times virtual groups kind of actually over communicate. I would say communicate as much as you can. That way you build a network, whether it's a mentor or it's other PSIPs, because I know when I went through the program, that was one of the most important things, and I still reach out to them even today. So I do recommend that. And then also questions to ask your mentor. I would just see, what is your life like as an Air Force civilian, or um, I would have them think about what their own career goals would be and ask their mentor, what would my life look like if I wanted to do this, and what kind of education can I pursue with the Air Force, just stuff like that.
What was your favorite part about being an intern? Like, what was that moment you're like, oh, this is fantastic?
Um, I don't know. I think that we got to do like a bunch of cool things. Like we got to go tour Battlefield Airmen, which was during the symposium. We got to go visit the dorms where the airmen go through basic. So that was really cool. We got to tour a plane. I think it's just like hanging out with the other interns. We got to do group projects with them and doing like HR stuff. I don't know. That's always fun.
Now, Professor Moore, again, so internship, this is the first time that they've done it. What is the benefit of an internship, you think? Again, because we'll tell students night and night, we're like, all right, internship is a great way to really develop those skills to get to that next level. But why should a student intern? Why is this so critical for them, you think?
Well, I want to go back to something that Christina said, and she outlined a really strong internship program with an onboarding program, a training program, and then opportunities to meet people in different fields, career fields. The benefit of an internship program like that is that there's been a lot of pre-thinking and a lot of collaboration between probably members of her team throughout the organization to determine what are our needs as an organization, and they've also thought about what can we offer students. So there has to be a lot of synergy for it to be a really strong internship. I mean, hopefully, if students are at the latter end of their degree plan, and in my case, it's communications and media students, it's really the first opportunity that they've had to get into an agency site, get their hands on the equipment in a different way than the day in and day out sort of slow cook instruction that we give them. We tend to be very patient, and sometimes we give extensions on projects. But if you're in an internship, for instance, I have students at Telemundo and Univision and different bilingual news agencies, and there's no extensions. The news goes on at 5 and 10 and different digital products. So students will get more of an immediate sense of what's expected of them. They'll be better trained. They'll be more marketable. Those are the three main benefits to students in a 10 to 16 week internship.
And again, with internship, it's a wonderful way to kind of test the waters, again, get introduction. I was one of those as an undergrad. I had always thought I was going to go in one career path. When I interned, I realized maybe that's not for me. And then I took another opportunity to kind of explore, and I was like, oh, this fits so much better. So being open to know, okay, yes, this is great for me, but then also, well, do I want to change paths perhaps? Now, what about the thought of, so Christina, I'm really interested, especially for your perspective of, do you feel an internship is almost like an ongoing interview? Do you think employers are still using this for onboarding?
I think that it is. And every year when I talk to the interns at the symposium, I say, this is your 12-week interview. And honestly, if you are fortunate enough to get an internship at a great company and you like the job, you like the people that you work with, and they have opportunities to hire you after graduation, then you need to treat it as every day is an interview because and maybe it's not just between you and your supervisor, and this goes traditional as well. Everyone you interact with is going to be rating you in their head. And when you work for organizations that are very close knit, if I have a negative interaction with you as program manager, and then maybe your supervisor's emailing me on, yeah, I'm still making the decision on so and so, I could say, well, honestly, when I was at the symposium, I saw this person, blah, 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 blah. And so all of that kind of takes into account. And even when you're working in that family environment, and then you have like an intern come in, and sometimes the supervisors will ask the coworkers, the people sitting around, hey, what do you think of them? Are they actually doing their work, or are they on Netflix all day? And then they hide their phone when only when I come, so it's an interview and you never know who's going to be interviewing you because I mean, you don't know who knows who. And in our organizations, um, a lot of people know people. So you could not know that this person is like best friends with your supervisor or whomever, and they could be telling them, like, well, they were kind of rude, or, so I would just say be professional, and know that this could be the start of your career future, or it may not if it's not the right fit. And so when we tell people it's an interview, we also say, we want to make sure this is a good fit for you because I've had internships where it was not a good fit. And then the places where you actually want to work, it just feels good. And so that's really what we're looking for. And we try to tell them that as much as possible because you never know, or you never know the person that you work with today could be the person offering you a job in the future. So you're always being interviewed during your internship and beyond.
Yeah, very, very true. And then you never know, you may actually find a great mentor down here where, again, it's just some guidance on if you do want to continue on with that path. So, Brenna, okay, so you went through the program and then you transitioned on. How did you make that a reality? How did you stand out and really get noticed?
I think one of the things that helped is I would always ask to work or always ask for training if I was out of work. I was like, hey, you have something else, or can I shadow? Can I shadow? So that definitely helped. Without being too technical, like your assigned work for your grade level, but I'd be like, you know, when I be a pack or when I'm a pack, I'm gonna be at this level. So can I learn that? Can I learn that? And so that I think that definitely helped. Like, oh yeah, like she gets things done, fast learner. So I think that helps stand out. You show initiative because those are the people that supervisors are gonna want, the ones that want to do work.
And then,
And Miss Clarissa, if I could piggyback off
by
what
all
Brenna
means.
said. So when we were looking for a pack to assist me, because pretty much I always have a pack that works alongside me to help with the program, I was talking to the local coordinator saying, hey, I want a really, really good, strong pack. I want someone that thinks outside the box, all this other stuff. And, I kind of had my little mental list of a person that I thought would be ideal for the position. And then they said, Brenna is great. Everyone has said she's a really hard worker. She's quick on her feet, all this stuff. And I was like, all right then. And if Brenna did not have that reputation, I would have been like, pass. I don't know. I don't want to risk it. So, and her not knowing that, you know, she was being looked at to come work on this team, and that's what I was looking for. And then she's come and she's done great things. She also won civilian of the quarter. So it's that would never have happened had she not shown up to work every day and done a great job.
And I love the fact that y'all kind of mentioned again, like the key skills, right? Because everyone knows, again, like technical skills very important, but sometimes it's those like soft skills, which we like to call power skills in career, because they're so critical to the success of an employee. So that ability to communicate, that initiative, especially I think in a remote environment, is going to be even more important. Also, adaptability probably is going to be another key one too. Can you problem solve and kind of think on your feet? So, Professor Moore, what is one challenge that you want to put out there for the interns going out this summer?
I have been encouraging students who are going to begin virtual internships to draw up a list of questions with me that they're going to ask their site supervisors. We're presuming that most of the site supervisors have not run virtual internships before unless they were already set up in that way. Fortunately for us, a lot of the marketing and social media companies are super fast at transitioning in that realm. So I think that communication will not be an issue. But those students need to ask questions right from the get-go in terms of what kind of tools are they going to be expected to use? Do they have all the technology that's available to them? I have a lot of shy students who are very adept at growing their soft skills in a more interpersonal environment. So, relationship building can be really hard if you're just starting out in your career. Students need to be able to practice that face to face, but they're going to adapt. They're also incredibly gifted at learning new technology, so they will find a way to connect using we use Slack, we use Trello, we use lots of different online workflow tools in our industry, and most of our students are already familiar with them. In some cases, they're teaching me in class how to do news production and Instagram and different social media platforms. So, another piece of advice I have for them is to maybe spend more time thinking about what their objectives are and making or insisting, if there's not a formal mentoring program already in place, that they have an opportunity to not just talk to the team but talk one-on-one with their mentor. In our field in communications and media production, we have two types of internship programs. Some of them are more formal mentorship programs and others are more coaching programs. So in our TV station, students are simply being coached, but they might not being mentored at the same time. So they get fast-paced technical expertise, but they might not be asked more holistic questions like, where are you going in your career? Or how can we help you build your portfolio? It might be more of a technical internship program. So the student needs to be clear about what they're looking for and communicate that in those early meetings and those onboarding programs if they have them available.
I think probably also something that it's not always natural for a student to ask for feedback, good and bad. It's one of those things where like, well, just tell me what I did great, right? Well, how do you maybe coach them to, want to know all of it? What are some things I do have room for improvement? Christina, what advice would you have for them to have those critical conversations? Because again, this is an area of growth for them. This may be their first time in the industry. How can they get comfortable with that?
I would ask them to establish that with their supervisor so that way they could maybe have that. And I know um, a lot of different training talks about, maybe millennials as, hey, we want instant feedback now. We're used to Facebook where, you post it and then immediately you get all these comments and that's what people are used to. Where other generations, they may not be used to always giving their feedback on everything. So I would just say at the beginning, let your supervisor know, hey, I'm really excited about this opportunity. I want to learn. And maybe it's not a thing that you're asking them every day for feedback, but maybe you can have different marks like every 2 weeks. Hey, can we have a sit down discussion? And it's not that it's just all intern going up, and we'll talk to our supervisors. We'll hold webcasts for our supervisors and let them know, hey, this is what to expect with this generation. So offering that feedback, maybe saying, hey, I'm going to meet with them every other week and just do a status check and give that option because typically in our program we'll do mid feedback and final feedback. So if there are any issues, that's when they could address that with their interns halfway through the program. And we encourage, hey, let's have discussions if they're not doing things correctly. It's an interview, so, you know, we want that to happen. And if they're working on a project and they're not sure, we encourage them to ask questions. Because the thing about working for the Air Force is you're working next to people who've done this for 30 plus years. And so they're experts. It's like reach out, ask them the questions and just know they know more than you, and that's fine. And, don't be afraid to approach people.
Now, I know Brenna had mentioned the fact that what she really enjoyed about her intern experience getting to engage with the other interns. How is that going to be done right now with the virtual environment? Is there a plan for interns to be able to kind of meet up with each other somehow and to kind of debrief a little bit?
Yes, so we do have some networking mixers planned for our symposium and also throughout the internships. We have planned TED Talk Tuesdays and they'll have their Friday Frappuccino peer mentoring sessions. So we're just trying to give them as many opportunities to come together, get to know one another, and have those conversations. And I think people think we're moving to a virtual realm and you can't really build a relationship that way and it's hard, but I mean I think we've already been doing that for years. I've have the pleasure of working with people at different locations across the country and we've had phone conversations for years. Some people never even met up until we had a supervisor symposium a few weeks ago. And then finally I saw their video, but it's like I've talked to you 1,000 times. We've emailed back and forth. Like I feel like I know you, I know about your kids. You told me all this information, and we've never met face to face. So I do think it's possible that they could still get to know one another as much as they can. Maybe it's a thing of, planning after hour activities or hey, would you want to have a discussion on this or hey, whatever. I'm all about thinking outside the box, but I don't want people to think I can't establish a relationship just because we're on other sides of the country, because it is possible.
Yeah, I think it's also going to allow us to have much more reach now, right? I love even the fact that now employers are talking about, well, we can reach for candidates outside of just our geographic location now because we know our roles can be remote if need be. So it's really exciting time. I think we're in a big moment of evolution right now. Um, let's see. Brenna, what are maybe the top three skills that you think an intern should pretty much be like, okay, I'm a master at this at the end of this experience?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I would say being agile is probably one. That's like one of the things that we're big on at the Air Force Personnel Center. Just if anybody says, "Hey, you want to work on this or whatever," like say yes. Um, being like hardworking, like motivated, so that you stand out. And I would say probably like a good team player because we do a lot of that. especially in the work, even in the virtual environment, you're still going to be a team player. So.
And then could you describe maybe what a typical day was like as being an intern? Was it like always set like, okay, here's your schedule, this is what's gonna be like every day, or what was it?
Actually, no, because it would change a lot depending on if we had a group project going on. I was the first year, so it looks a little bit different now, but we did a total of 3 group projects. So every day was a little bit different, and it was also different depending on what section you were in. So I was in this place called non-competitive where I processed personal actions. So, if somebody got like an award or like they resigned, I would do that. So, I'd go in, work on my actions, or maybe I'd do some shadowing, go to lunch. And usually I would meet up with interns, depending on what time it was. Maybe if I was really hungry, I would eat with this group instead of this group. But we all knew like, oh, so and so ate outside or they ate in this break room. So I definitely eat with interns. And then maybe at 1 o'clock, I had my senior leader mentoring with the deputy or whatever. And then at this time, I'd go work on my group project. And by then, it was the end of the day. Mhm.
So Professor Merwin, Brenna was like kind of highlighting the skills. I'm hearing the classroom experience like come straight through, especially with that teamwork. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. What we've been trying to do is segment our interns too. So if for example, over the spring, I had 27 interns. Unfortunately, almost 60% of them lost their internships because many of the companies were just not prepared to transition. So in that case, they had strong face-to-face programs and they were able to help the teams come together. There were maybe 5 different types of communication interns across these companies. I think that it takes some work for the faculty advocate, but also the site supervisors to engineer teamwork when you're doing virtual internships. But hopefully, like locally, there's some companies where we're still placing 3 or 4 interns. And so some of the pre-planning I've been doing is making sure that those students know one another. We have a pretty small program. We attend a pretty small public university, so there's a lot of good morale and a lot of teamwork already in the classes. And I think that getting them together before they start their internships to introduce each other so that they can troubleshoot and they can also advocate for each other's needs since they're coming from the same program is important. But on a whole, I think as we're learning how to structure virtual internships, that there's going to be a lot of independent work. It really just depends on the type of internship. I mean, this is a pretty exciting panel for me to be on because this is an example of the Air Force of a very strong, from what I can tell, internship program. And that's not common. There's not a lot of internships that have a strong onboarding program, that type of mentorship program, and employees at an agency who are willing to do that amount of work and who are supported by their superiors to bring in new talent every semester. It's pretty high turnover bringing in students every 16 weeks and for short micro internships over the summer. So for students who are going to listen to this later who are in the meeting now, really listen to the voices that you're hearing because this is an example of a strong internship program. So if you're not hearing that replicated in your own internship program, or mentors who are not facilitating teamwork, individual meetings, mentorship, micro lessons, then you want to continue looking for a stronger internship program because still some agencies are confused by unpaid labor program versus internship program. So we work with students to understand that you're not an unpaid employee, you're an intern who is deserving of a training program and a way to move through an experience and gain skills at the same time that you're contributing to an organization.
And I echo the fact that Air Force Civilian really has moved forward with this. We're still hearing from some students that their internships are still, they don't know because they don't know if they're going to move forward or not, or if it's going to be maybe paused. There's some that are being paused until September for it to be a reevaluation and see where they're at that time. There's some that have totally gotten canceled, and then there's some that are being told, well, go ahead and wait for us for just a little bit longer. But then the students are thinking, well, should I apply for other ones? So I give Air Force Civilian a lot of credit. I know it was a hard decision to make to say, okay, well, you know what, we're going to move forward. We're going to be strong on this. Christine, what was that thought process process like when you're like, okay, so we need to make a call here because, I mean, really, you could have potentially lost really solid candidates if you would have delayed a little bit longer?
Well, luckily the big decisions take place way above my pay grade, so I don't have that anxiety. They did ask my opinion in the room, and I was like, "Hey, I say we go for it." We ideally everyone wants to keep it with the in-house, but kind of just looking at COVID and the way everything was going, it's kind of like, all right, so we were at the point where it's if we're going to make that change, we have to commit to that change and we need to start rolling out a plan right now. We just can't wait any longer. And for me, it's kind of better to err on the side of caution and hey, let's just plan for the worst. We're never going back to the office. So what is our intern program going to look like? And sometimes people want to pause a little more, but I kind of think it's just my personality type that I'm just like, all right, well, let's figure it out. Because I mean, the work required to recruit, we traditionally will hire 500 people from September to December. And going through all those resumes, going to all the recruiting events, um, going through all of the emails is a lot of work. And it's not just me and Brenna. We work with about 20 other career field team at program administrators. And so everyone's putting a lot of effort to try to get this talent into our organizations. And so it was kind of like, we kind of have them in hand right now. And if we take a risk, like we're the Air Force, we're supposed to be agile and innovative and like that's our day job to like we have to. So what would it look like if we could not be agile and innovative enough to have this response to COVID when all of our war fighters are being agile? We owe it to them to be agile as well. So I think the biggest thing that was going through our brain was just, well, how are we going to do it? Not, are we going to do it? It was, how are we going to do this? And we did keep sending out emails to the interns like, hey, please be patient. You're going to have an internship. And we offered paid internship. So it's like, you're going to have a paid internship. Just give us a little bit of time. We're all in the thinking room. And by all in the thinking room, we are all virtually thinking and meeting multiple times a week to get all this planned where we have kids video bombing and we have dogs and cats and all sorts of chaos. But it's like, we're going to make this plan and we are going to bring you guys something solid. And so it's just that's just what we do.
No, again, a lot of kudos to your team because it was something that when this first happened, that was reality where a lot of students, I mean, we understand the concerns where, well, what next? What are the next steps? So when we heard that, y'all were going to keep on moving forward and you were going to launch a virtual, that was fantastic. And we hope that, again, it's a wonderful experience this summer. If you can even share experiences, kind of what were your lessons learned afterwards, we will love to hear that because I know again, we're all having to kind of figure this out together. So, a reminder to the attendings, if you have any questions, make sure to put them into the chat. Also, again, this will be recorded and posted on YouTube, so please feel free to share with anyone that you feel like this information would be helpful for, because internship is such a critical moment for us that this is a launch for a lot of young professionals. So, in exiting an internship, right? So it's near the end that the 6 weeks are about to wrap up. What are some best practices before they exit? I want to ask each of y'all this question because I think it's really important because this whole wrap up moment where it's like, okay, I did it, but now what am I supposed to do with that experience, right? So, Christina, can you lead us off on that? And then Professor Moore and then Brenna, okay?
Okay, so I definitely think one, you need to write everything down, type it up, add it to your resume while it's fresh. It's what did you do? What did you learn? What are the numbers that you worked with? And then the second thing is to have that conversation with your supervisor or mentor or whoever the hiring official is to see if they do have a follow-on position available for you if you were able to provide. In some instances, maybe it's a thing of I'm actually available to keep working if you guys do need the help. And if they say yes, then maybe you can just keep working. Um, and definitely keep in contact with everyone that you've worked with if you've established a network with someone, maybe it's connecting with them on LinkedIn, sharing a phone number, getting on WhatsApp or something, and just make sure you maintain that connection. Something that we have is our Air Force Civilian Service app, and we have special groups for all our interns. So we encourage communication there. So, hey, if you guys are still going to work, you can instantly have access. And our app holds all of our Premier College intern from 2018, 2019, 2020. And so sometimes it's a thing of the interns will say, like, hey, I'm going to Hill Air Force Base. And other people are like, well, I was a PSIP in 18, or I was a PSIP last year. And so I would just say stay connected, because it's easy to forget people and it's easier to just do touch points every now and then so that way you can remember the person. And I would say thank you. If someone really made an impact, email your senior leader, and if they were your mentor or whomever, someone that went out of their way to really help you, there's nothing wrong with giving them a little bit of appreciation, and not bad. It kind of makes you look good, and it thanks them for their time. So I would say definitely be genuine about your thank you, but give people that opportunity to thank them for maybe even allowing you to have this opportunity at that organization, or being flexible, or giving you that extra time on Thursdays to discuss whatever. So those are probably my biggest things to take away from the internship.
Thank you. Professor Moore?
Christina has great ideas. To that, I would add, I'm a big believer in handwritten thank you notes. I think that students should always write out their thoughts. Another recommendation I have on the way out is I think that students need to work on changing their perceptions of themselves. I mentioned that many of my students are shy, but they also have a lot of confidence. And I think that when you're phasing out of an internship, one thing that they can practice is to be very collegial rather than thinking of themselves as the person who's coming into the company and then leaving. Take an interest in your supervisor's career ambitions as well. So ask them, well, I'm on my way out, but where are you headed? And how can we stay in touch? And how can we continue to have conversations about my trajectory and also some of your goals? So put yourself on even ground with your mentors, and start thinking of yourself as a professional and having those conversations, whether it be face to face or virtual. Those are my top two recommendations. I also have my students know that I recommend a book called Intern Cube by Michael True. Michael is very invested in the success of different kinds of internships around the country, and he was the keynote speaker last year at the National Society of Experiential Learning. And I was an early adopter of his book, and all my students read it because there's a wonderful chapter on how to gracefully end an internship. So I recommend that book as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, Brenna. So, what should a student be thinking about as they're wrapping up on their internship?
Okay, well, I actually stayed part-time, so I don't really know. I don't have an experience with that. But I think one of the things I would do would be to, if I worked with any other interns, I would get their contact information. That really helped because some of them did leave and they would always be asking me questions. So that's a good thing. And then if I would make sure someone, whether it's your supervisor or anybody, would have your correct email address. That way, if an offer was extended, it was going to the right place. And then, yeah, without repeating anything, I would just make sure your resume is done. I think a good tip is to do that while you're in the internship, maybe at the end of the, since this one is condensed, maybe at the end of the week, or what I used to do was just at the end of each month, just write down, what did I do that way? Also, because in the Air Force, when we do our appraisals, we have to like put everything we did into our appraisal. So if you do it each month, it's really easy. So I would just say keep up with that for the interns so that we don't forget anything.
Yeah, those are all great pieces of advice. Again, from the career services team, we echo a lot of that. I think, especially since it's going to be a 6-week window, maybe doing like a weekly update on your resume, I think it'll be pretty critical, right? Because it's going to fly by. 6 weeks going remote, you're probably going to accomplish more than you even thought. They're like, oh, yeah, I offered this piece of advice and I helped launch this. Write it down. I think just having that Friday reflection goes a long way. Again, making sure that resume is always updated at this point, because you never know when an opportunity may spring up. Maybe you get that call, like Christina had said with Brenna, where, hey, somebody identified you as a potential member to join another team, have it updated and have it good to go. And those thank yous, because again, you never know when you may have to contact that person, maybe for a letter of rec, or maybe you want them to write a recommendation statement on your LinkedIn profile. So making sure you're leaving in a good note is very important. You're going to notice, again, sometimes in the professional realm, it's a small community and it gets a little bit smaller as we're kind of expanding out in this virtual environment because we all end up knowing each other. So again, make sure it's a positive one, asking for feedback, and then just being open to everything. And then if you know you're struggling on something, I think this is also something that's kind of scary for students where like, oh my goodness, what if I don't pick it up on the first try? Ask questions. Again, this is a wonderful opportunity for you just to kind of gauge and to actually evolve. Don't be afraid to actually ask for that feedback and those learning moments. So I thank you all so much for just your time today and your wisdom. Again, kudos to Air Force Civilian for launching this. I know Professor Moore and I are probably very interested to hear how your summer goes, and any advice you may have, because we want to try to even challenge more to think about the remote experience, because this has also been a really cool environment. It's one that I think we're probably going to see remote work hang around even longer, because you're seeing that's having a wide range in regard to productivity, even for a lot of industries. All right. Well, thank you all. Again, a reminder that this was recorded and it will be posted on the YouTube channel later on today. So that will be at Tamusa Maze. And then let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly. We are going to be doing a couple of initiatives coming up next and this week. Okay. Can everybody see the screen just fine?
Yes.
Fantastic. So a reminder that we will be having becoming a competitive candidate tomorrow with Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union from 2 to 3. That's actually going to be led by the Assistant Vice President of Human Resources with Randolph Brooks, Glenn Earnhardt, who will be talking about kind of how to build a digital brand, how to network online, because again, even though we can't see each other in person, we can still network and have conversations online. Also some kind of best tricks and tips for resume development, and also how to handle that applicant tracking system, because you're going to notice you're going to have to apply on a lot of online platforms. So also being mindful of that. And then next week, we will actually be doing a digital branding boot camp, which will kind of do a deep dive into LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is so impactful for, again, a lot of conversations, networking. You have a lot of recruiters actually who have started conversations with candidates just for kind of advice on how they would handle the interview process and such. So we will be welcoming security service and also our LinkedIn local group here in San Antonio, who will be participating in a panel discussion afterwards. So it should be a great event. And then just a reminder to stay connected with the Maze Center. So even though we are virtual, we were still servicing you just like we normally would. So you can actually access a lot of our services through our website and also via email. Also, our social media platforms has a lot of contact points for you. We have a lot of social media, guys. We've worked very hard on that. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So again, if you do have questions, please feel free to ask. We do have a lot of our team is working remotely right now, but we are still very much engaged with you in this online platform. All right. And then thank you again for everyone who participated today, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Joining us.